気づいてないんだ。
何がです？
いや、別に。
Hi there everyone, Lars back with another review and analysis for Kimi Wa Meido Sama Episode 6, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And in this week's episode, we get to see Yuki firmly establishing a new normal for her life. Granted, it does come with some caveats, such as that Grace is now the PE teacher and still flirting with Hitoyoshi, though mostly for her own fun and not for weird, creepy teacher-student vibes. Yeesh. No, mostly this is for her just to tease Yuki and be in a situation where she's pretty certain that Yuki's not going to murder her for playing these little pranks on her. However, Yuki does spike a volleyball directly at her head and punch it right into the wall. And who is this curious little pink-haired girl who wants to cheer for Yuki? Oh, believe you me, we are going to find out a lot about this sweet little cinnamon roll soon, but this episode still focuses primarily on Yuki. We also get to see that Yuki is really improving in her homemaking abilities. She's able to cook and clean a whole lot better now. She can finally do an entire load of laundry without screwing it up, and she can fold it all good. She's able to play with Mochitaro without freaking out. She loves this little dog now. Things are going really well for her. She finally feels like she belongs. And when it's dinner time, Hitoyoshi takes her on over to the wonderful Katsura sauce place and gets some delicious pork cutlets, and there she has the chance to meet the owners and talk with them and just thank them so much for the delicious sauce and everything great that they're making. And the grandma's got some really good wise words for her, saying, look, you know what, it's not just so much the sauce is great, but it's because you feel warm, you feel welcome, you feel loved, and that's what allows you to truly appreciate the taste of the sauce, which suddenly refocuses Yuki on Hitoyoshi, that Hitoyoshi is really the one who has opened up this warm, beautiful world for her, which she later on tells him all of these things that I would have thought were absolutely insignificant, playing with a dog, in eating and enjoying food, doing simple chores, going to school. All of these things bring me such great happiness and fulfillment, where once upon a time I was just a killer doing all of these things for my master just that way I wouldn't be thrown away and lose my life. And thinking of assassins, it's kind of funny that she believes that the grandpa of the store might just possibly be an assassin, because despite his old age, he's able to suddenly firmly hold onto that knife as he cuts up the pork cutlet, and he approaches her from behind. She has no idea that he's there as he brushes off her shoulder and says, "Young miss, you've got some dirt on you right there." I wonder if there's actually might be some foreshadowing for way in the future about one of the other members of the Dragon's Fangs, because as this episode tells us, Yuki doesn't really know who the members are. And considering stuff that actually happens way later in the manga, this episode might actually be giving us some context clues about stuff later on. This episode is actually in many ways largely filler, and yet it's filler that works really well. Normally that's not the case, and this comes down actually to the conversation that's had at the end. Hitoyoshi has his reoccurring nightmare of his mom abandoning him, which is canonical, and then he wakes up going into Yuki's chest. Oh my! And he reveals what's been going on. He's trying to find out a little bit more about the assassin organization that she once belonged to, and yeah, he still has this dream plaguing him, but there's now a change. There's now someone in his life who can fill in the hole that's been left there since his family fell apart. Now, what I really like about this episode is that even though a lot of it tends to actually be more filler than actual canon content from the manga, it takes little things from the manga and has helped to kind of expand on them. And the reason why I like this is because The manga actually kind of jumps really quickly on from the whole confrontation with Grace and just enters into the new crazy arc. This episode allows us to have closure to what happened in the previous episode, as well as now re-establish what the relationship is between Hitoyoshi and Yuki. And this gives us a chance to actually see Yuki as a normal girl. This is this thing that she wanted. And granted, again, there's still caveats because she's an assassin. However, we get to firmly see and enjoy what her life is like as a student, as a maid, as someone living with Hitoyoshi and living her best life. You don't really get to see a lot of this in the manga. The manga goes from shenanigans to shenanigans pretty quickly. And this is an excellent example of what a proper adaptation should do. Despite the limited budget for this anime, and you could really actually see that in this episode where they were really pulling out all kinds of little animation tricks to try to make it seem a little bit more high quality than it actually is, the storytelling delivered on something that the manga hadn't, which again is providing closure to the previous arc, re-establishing the relationship between Hitoyoshi and Yuki, providing good context for the world and for their characters, and setting them up for the next stage of their relationship. This was really, really good. Now then, these slice-of-life moments are nothing foreign or new to people who enjoy slice-of-life stories. The thing is that Kimi Wa Meido Sama is not a slice-of-life story. Instead, it is a rom-com mixed in with loads of action sequences, as well as having this underlying dark thread where in the manga, once you start getting deeper into the story of Yuki, it actually becomes way more horror and supernatural than just straight up action or rom-com. And so the story has 3 different genres that it's trying to juggle and blend really well together. And when you introduce these slice of life moments, it feels like, okay, now then we just got so much going on here. What to make of this? This is actually something that I would argue is good storytelling, something that a lot of people might tend to forget, especially when they are focusing on action or on romance. Because like, okay, I need this really good special romance scene to help move the relationship along. Ooh, and I need this action in order to keep people engaged and to introduce the next big bad and have this cool epic fight. The thing is that the slice of life moments that you should be sprinkling into these stories allow us to get to know these characters better. Why should I care about 2 characters potentially falling in love if I don't really understand those characters or see them in their natural environment, which is not always the blushy. The slice of life moments are there for that. And the slice of life moments also help to establish the more personal stakes that are up for grabs in the action sequences. And so, when you are writing a story, you really should be taking elements of various genres, or at least different ideas, and putting them on into your story. Slice of life moments allow us to get to know these characters really well. And another thing that I believe that this episode does really well is the dialogue. And I say that as someone who has struggled for a long time with his own dialogue throughout his books. And I will be very honest with that. Dialogue is one of those things that was what I feared the most when it came to writing. I would always keep saying, no, I will never write my books because I don't know how to write good conversations between people. And it's difficult. The best advice that I can give as just kind of a starting point is that you need to understand who your characters are. And the conversation that rounds off this episode between Yuki and Hitoyoshi works because we've had 5+ episodes to firmly establish who these characters are, their personalities, their backgrounds, their commonalities, their differences, and so that way they can actually have this kind of open conversation where Yuki is clearly Yuki and Hitoyoshi is clearly Hitoyoshi, and you understand what they both know and what they don't, and how they are compromising with their words, with their language, in order to understand each other and to properly communicate. There's no big fancy words. You can tell that these characters are being honest. The writers made sure to not deviate and go on to weird tangents. They're focusing on what is happening in the moment. And that is another good bit of advice that I can give, and this is something that, again, I struggle with. It's so easy when writing dialogue to create tangents, and that's in part because we ourselves always go on tangents when we're talking. However, as a writer, you do have to manufacture a conversation. And this is where it gets difficult because people know when a conversation doesn't feel natural. And this is going to take loads of practice. But you do need to say, this conversation will establish this. It establishes this kind of a relationship between these characters. This is the information that they will cover. This is where they need to be by the end of their conversation. So you are manufacturing it, and it's so difficult to make it feel natural, which is why you need to, again, start with your characters. Know who they are and make sure that they as themselves are very clearly present within the story, and not that you as the author are just simply speaking through them, using them as puppets in order to move the plot along. This is why conversations, why dialogue is one of the trickiest things, in my opinion, to write, and why I am so happy to see it done so well in a filler episode for this anime. And again, a filler episode that, while it is filling in places and things and gaps that the manga left behind, it's doing it in a way that complements the story. It complements everything that we've gotten in the anime. And for people who've read the manga, this is good because it gives us the wrap-up that we should have gotten within the original story. And if there's one last thing to bring up, oh my, woo, that fan service moment. If there's anyone who's going to be complaining about this, then I send you on off to the manga, because oh boy, there's a whole lot more there, which I have to applaud the animators for resorting to the fan service moment in the 6th episode, and not a whole lot sooner. So hey, good on you guys. But with all that being said, if you're looking for more reviews, analyses, insights, recommendations, and the likes, then please check out our other videos here on our channel. And if you would like to enjoy some new and interesting stories that you haven't yet come across, then please check out the books that I have published. Links for them are in the description below. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.